On this episode, we had Mike Jasperson from Jaspy's Case Breaks, and he told me a couple amazing stories. One from how he drove a truck all the way from Philly to California with his sports card collection to open his shop. And secondly, he gave me a really important piece of advice that I'll never forget, which is instead of just buying a ton of medium to low value cards, just go for the high value, just do it and go for the high grades of that, because that's where you'll do the best. Hope you guys enjoy the episode. Let me know what you think. I grew up such a fan of sports memorabilia and sports cards, and I'm really excited that this show is both going to highlight that as well as the awesome entrepreneurs that make it all possible. Let's do it. So first question here, how did you get started in the sports card world and the collecting world?
My father was a collector, so I pretty much have been doing this my entire life. I attended my first card show in 1970. It was just the 50th anniversary. I think there's three attendees that are still surviving. It was only maybe 18 or 19 people. It was in Yorktown Heights, New York. So
Wow.
I've off and on for the last 50 years, I've survived by sports cards, whether mail order. I've had 3 card shops. I spent 7 years at Beckett Publishing. I spent 14 years at Topps. Basically in the retail end, and opened up the shop. About 7 or 8 years ago, I saw some case breaks on eBay. And then I had an older son who tried to start doing some breaks on eBay. But it was hard to get the people to pay.
Right.
So in its infancy, and then we started the case break. So this is sort of a second generation, me, and then the third generation, my son, Nick. Basically, he's sort of said, hey, let's do some case breaking. I just sort of semi-retired from Topps, moved to California. So we started case breaking maybe 6-7 years ago in our basement garage. Fast forward 6 years, we're a 3,000 square foot shop with 2 break studios, going 7 days a week on Instagram and YouTube.
Hi everyone, Joe for JaspysCaseBreaks.com, about to do some Upper Deck Supreme hard court basketball. This is break number 25.
And I love that you're doing it as well. It's so great to see.
Yeah.
I've never met anybody.
I get a lot of help from the youngsters.
That's great, but I've never seen, anybody like yourself who's doing that. So it's really impressive to span the course of like the 19-person, even if you want to call it a convention or event gathering.
Yeah, it was a convention. There were people from all over the country flew in.
Yeah, it's amazing. My next question is, for your very first shop, how did you get all the inventory to actually open it in the first place? Because I imagine that's probably the biggest challenge for people.
Well, my first shop I opened in 1982. So growing up as a second generation collector in the 60s in Pennsylvania, a lot of flea markets, picked up cards there, bushel baskets for $10, $20. So I amassed a lot of cards in the mid to late 60s. So fast forward, when I moved to California in 1977, I started doing some card shows locally. There were a few Wednesday night shows, and it was really great. 1982 opened the shop, and I drove 2 28-foot truck from Pennsylvania to Long Beach, California, and stocked the shop. So there was only one card company, and actually Fleer and Donruss came in. So there really wasn't a lot of cards to sell. It was just base, Topps, Fleer, Donruss. So it really wasn't much inventory there. But what I had was a lot of vintage cards, not only cards, but autographs, publications, memorabilia. So I pretty much fully stocked the shop for less than $100 probably.
That's incredible. Spanning all of this time, when do you think the card market has been at its strongest? Is it right now?
Prior to several weeks ago, probably now. I mean, there were a few in the early 70s. There was a lot of Walter Cronkite did a thing on baseball cards way back in the early 70s, and like next thing you know, there were card shows locally. Everybody, and then there's newspaper stories, and that was a really exciting time in the early to mid 70s. All the shows, there were hundreds of shows across the country. That was a good time. The early to mid 80s was a good time, financially, popularity, but nothing like the last year. Case breaking is taking this hobby just to another level, if that's a right word.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. So you guys are doing seven nights a week,
7 nights a week,
live stream,
live
player
stream.
and team breaks.
We do team PYTs, random teams, serial number breaks. We do probably, we just did tennis last night. It was a tennis break, and that was by
How is that?
item. Topps Transcendent Tennis is $12,000 case.
Whoa.
So I haven't watched the video. I've been at home, but really they're breaking everything now. I mean, it's not just baseball and football and basketball and hockey, and we do our own repacks where we go out and we buy graded cards, seal them up, put them up on the Jaspys.com website, and so you just keep on going.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you think they're going to be? You mentioned a $12,000 tennis case just now. Do you think there are any other sports or products that are going to be emerging again really big in the card world? Because I remember back in the day when I was growing up, it was baseball cards and Pokemon cards, and then It became baseball. It became basketball and baseball.
Tennis is about as far as it's going to get. Soccer is becoming popular. We do a lot of breaks in soccer, Prism World Cup soccer. We have all the international players. People really tend to collect. But as far as tennis, I mean, auto racing, they try. Golf had a good run with Tiger Woods with Upper Deck, but I don't really see a lot of sports coming in other than baseball, basketball, football, hockey are always going to be the strongest.
Gotcha. Do you remember?
Basketball is the strongest now.
Yeah, for sure. Do you remember what your favorite cards were growing up?
Well, I started collecting in '63. So when I started collecting, I mean, the '63s, the 4s, the 5s, in that era, but probably 1967 is probably my favorite. It was a full bleed photo rather than border to border. So it was really nicely well done. It had a lot of high numbers and very collectible, and a lot of favorite players in there.
Cool. Do you have a favorite card of all time from your collection?
I mean, probably a 1967 Brooks Robinson, who's my favorite player. It's a high number card. It's a pretty valuable card. I have it in sort of lesser condition, but it's probably my favorite card.
Got it.
Growing up.
In your shop, or that has come through your shop, some of the more modern stuff, is there anything that in the past has stood out to you that's come in and gone through?
Not our shop has only been open probably about 5 to 6 months. So our current shop, but there are things that do come in. We bought a really nice Michael Jordan collection, Kobe Bryant cards. What we do is we tend to buy the high grade graded cards.
Got it.
We don't really buy a lot of raw cards. It takes too
Mhm.
long to have them graded. It could be
Yeah,
up to
no, I'm with you.
up to 6 months. So we buy a lot of graded cards, especially for our repacks. And so we tend to pay a little bit more because we turn the inventory a little bit faster. And people tend to bring their walk-ins as far as, modern day cards.
Cool. Yeah, 6 months is too long to wait.
Yeah, we actually offered, to do that for our customers as a service to, hey, with the group submission, you can save a little bit, but we sort of stopped that because it's just time-wise, it doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah. Who are some of the guys that you look at as a good investment for younger collectors now?
As far as sports,
Yeah, as far as
baseball, Wander Franco, who's going to be one of your top hot prospects, probably Tatis Jr., these modern guys, Guerrero Jr., Joe Adell from the Angels is going to be a really, really good player, big market. Basketball is pretty much the Zions and the Trey Youngs and the Hashimuras, and next year it'll be somebody else though.
it's fun. What's a piece of advice you have for younger collectors trying to get into the industry? Because especially with social media now, as you know, there are a lot of kids that are getting into it, and as
Yeah.
amazing as that is, sometimes they need a little bit of advice from people like yourself. So I'm wondering if you had any advice for some of those younger guys out there.
Um, well, first of all, collect what you like, but one rule I've always um, adhered to is the best will always be the best. So if you want to collect, Wander Franco and his prospects, you want to buy his best card. His best card will always be the best. It'll always be the most valuable. It'll always be the most sought after, meaning, the best set. So if it's basketball, you want to get that flawless or that RPA out of hockey upper deck. You want the best cards. I know they're expensive, but if you have the opportunity, save up. That's pretty good advice because the best have always been the best.
And you definitely are a believer, through that in buying, like, in putting emphasis on quality over quantity of cards that you're getting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially in today's day and age. There's a lot of competition out there as far as for quantity,
Yeah.
but there's not a lot of competition for quality. So quality, everybody wants the best.
Yeah, especially because in sports cards, quality comes with, scarcity.
Absolutely.
So you only, like, if you're getting the night, like you mentioned, Flawless doesn't make cards that printed more than 25 of a single card.
Right. Right.
So it definitely makes sense. How do you feel about Flawless? Because you mentioned Flawless there, Flawless versus Prism in basketball for rookies.
Well, Prism is sort of the mainstay. It's the meat, and Flawless is the dessert. The meat, there's more quantity, but the Prism rookies, the Zions, they will probably go up in value. They'll trade more. They'll be more active. Prism is good. Prism basically is the modern is the Topps Chrome. It's that Chrome technology. So Topps Chrome is always the best in baseball.
Yeah.
So Prism, as far as the mainstay, most popular product, Prism was really popular this year in basketball.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Are you worried at all about overproduction for products like Prism? Because I've seen in places it's like 2012 Prism, the first year Prism, it's selling for a ton right now because people are realizing there aren't that many out there.
Yeah.
And you look at like 2013-14 Giannis Silver Prism, and then you look on like the PSA sites and all these sites on how many the population is for the grades.
Right.
And then you compare those silvers to some of the more modern silvers, and some of the more modern ones are 5 to 10x, but it's the same parallel. Or does that make you worry at all about overproduction?
When it comes to a brand like Prism, there's that possibility because there's not a lot of relics. There's not a lot of, it's very expensive to put relics and on-card autos and things like that in the product. Prism, they probably produced more this year than they did in those past years, I'm sure. They actually sell direct now, Prism, so you can go buy it at their website. A little worried, but a lot of people are in the hobby now. A lot of new people have come to the hobby. So the supply and demand, the demand for Prism is there now because of all the new people that have come in the last couple of years, especially the last year. Thousands of new people. We get new people in our breaks every day. We couldn't sell a basketball break last year. We couldn't sell basketball. This year, it's 75% baseball, or excuse me, basketball. So it's just shifted. This whole hobby has just shifted to very quick sells. There's a lot of breakers, a lot of people that buy sealed product, and it's all getting opened up. So, breaking probably accounts for 50, 60% of the production run now, maybe with that manufacturer. So it's all being broken. So I don't really see a problem long-term with because the supply will be all open. Basically, the demand will be for the sealed product.
Right. That's a really good point. I've seen, especially as the years go on, when Prism first drops, it costs whatever. But then you look back at 2012 Prism, you can't find one for under $2,500 sealed.
No.
How did that happen?
Yeah.
That's one of the craziest parts to me.
Yeah.
And it's always going to be true for the cards. Let's say a PSA 10 Michael Jordan, whatever it's worth, it's not worth the $125,000 that it costs to get a sealed case of 1986 Fleer.
Right.
So I just think that is a super interesting contrast there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny though. But as far as breaking goes, how and just the industry in general, why do you think it has all changed so much so quickly? How there's so many new people in the industry? Do you think it is just the NBA doing really, really well and that's bringing people in? Or kind of like my theory is that all the kids that used to make money on sneakers can't anymore, and they need to make money doing something else, and the margins are a lot better?
Well, it's a combination of great rookie crop as far as baseball, basketball, hockey with Connor McDavid. So you had last 3-4 years, you've had a lot of really good rookies. A lot of good young talent. You had lower production runs. You had sort of a pretty good economy. Production runs had a lot to do with it.
Something else that I was kind of wondering, do you look at sports cards ever as a personal investment? Like, do you invest in sports cards yourself?
Sure. Not as much as I used to. My son Nick, who pretty much runs the break-in operation, he just picks a couple of players, does his research. So guys like Jimmy Garoppolo and he did really well there. Lamar Jackson. You sort of pick a few players. Sort of make that investment. But you got to be careful just to make sure that you sell them at the right time. But yeah, some of the Mike Trout cards. I know Nick is going back and getting some of the earlier Mike Trout cards. I think that's a great investment, especially his early stuff. In fact, we just went and got some 2009 Bowman's draft with Trout autos in there. And
Wow.
so we we got a couple of boxes, and we say, hey, we do up a mixer and we put that box in there. Well, there's only, one auto, and Trout's is the auto checklist. He's on the auto checklist, so you can't get a base card, just the auto card. So that's a big risk. That's, $5,000 box. So you throw that in there, and that creates a lot of excitement. But generally, you pick a few players. Don't go overboard. Just buy their best cards and have fun.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. How I've always gone about it is just picking a few of the modern guys and then just going PSA 10 on on whatever Prism, whatever I can get my hands on. But it can be harder. I mean, just like the price. Occasionally, I'll find myself going high end ungraded just because of how vast price differences between ungraded and graded for a flawless, for example, because you could get a flawless rookie card of a guy who you think is going to be amazing. And the way I look at it is, all right, let me just spend the $200 to get the base. And if one day it makes sense to get it graded, then okay, I'll get it graded and it'll turn into a $3,000 card. Or if it doesn't, I'm not going to waste the time and energy and money up front if I think the card would be a high grade. But I've always just gone pick 3 players a year and just try to create a catalog of them.
I mean, back in the 80s, we used to do that. There were a lot of deals at the card shows, and you could buy what they called cut card cases then. So they were just raw cards. So then you would sort them out. So you would sort, 100 Cal Ripken Jr. rookies, and then people would buy 100, and then you say, well, wait a minute, I want, there's Pete O'Brien, he's a rookie, and, he's only 3 cents a card, okay, I'll take 500. There was actually that type of transactions going on, where people were speculating on 100 counts, 50 counts. But then, as we all know, that overproduction caught up.
Yeah.
And all those cards, basically, even the Ripkins, are really hard to sell.
Now, before eBay, was there any way to sell cards apart from shows and stores?
There was mail order. I had a mail order catalog. I did it on a mimeograph machine. And I travel around the country, go to card shows, bring the stuff back, type it all up, and send it out to my 300 or 400 people that I had on my list. There was a publication. There were a lot of hobby papers. Sports Collectors Digest was the biggest publication. It was sort of Life magazine size, had like 400 pages at its peak. You could get a full page ad for $90. You type it up on a Monday morning, you FedEx it to Wisconsin, and it'd be in the upcoming week's magazine, and basically it was just all mail order, but it was there. There was a great business. I mean, it was rocking through the 80s and 90s in SCD.
That's amazing. But I imagine eBay has made everything very convenient.
Yeah, eBay really, funny story about eBay is I was at Beckett at the time in the early 90s when eBay started. And, pricing, the pricing structure was there was maybe 15 analysts spread across baseball, basketball, football, hockey. And, you had to come up with the prices every month. So you would travel to card shows, talk to dealers, record pricing, talk to shop owners. You would send out the previous month's Beckett price guide to a couple of special guys that were really, really active, and they would mark it up with their changes, and they would send it back. And then a couple of us, well, there's eBay, this thing called eBay, they're buying and selling, and we brought it up in a couple of the early meetings, and then I'll never mention the person's name, but in the meeting, it's, that's just a fad.
They were wrong.
And now Beckett basically, all their pricing is off of eBay, I'm sure. eBay is the new price guide.
That's interesting. I'm curious who's going to be next to come along because, as I'm sure you know, like StockX is used to selling sneakers. They're trying to get into it. I don't think they're doing a very good job yet, but they're trying. ComC is obviously around. There's another company that has asked me for a little bit of help. It's called Star Stock, and they're launching a marketplace. So it's going to be interesting to see how these new marketplaces kind of hold up. And it'll be
it's going to be really, really hard to compete with eBay. eBay just has the eyes. There's just so many people that go to eBay. Anything that you want is on. If you're looking for a price for a certain card, you just type it in eBay and it's there. Everything is there. So to compete with that, it's pretty tough. But I'm sure if you really can gather all that information into one portal. But eBay, it's pretty hard to compete with eBay. Yeah, the
one thing that I wish was more clear though on eBay, which is the one spot where I'd like to see a competitor come out, is providing general information on stuff. So, okay, what is the average Zion rookie card? I don't want to have to scroll and add them all together and divide them by the amount that I just selected, Like it would be really helpful if there was just an average if you typed it in. So I think that's where, from an information standpoint, a competitor could come around.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be great if you could just, have an app, you type it in, you type the player's name in, and boom, this is the average eBay price. You could start it with
you.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you and your son should do that.
Yeah, time. It's a lot of time.
But yeah, I really do hope somebody does, because that would be very convenient for all of us.
Yeah. eBay sold listings, it takes time.
But yeah, man, that's pretty much it. This has been an absolute pleasure. It's been really great hearing your story and everything. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it, Buster. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you again to Mike Jasperson of Jaspy's Case Breaks. Just wanted to thank him again for coming on the episode. That was a lot of fun. Hope you guys enjoyed. And I just wanted to give you a little heads up so you're ready, because you might want to sit down for this one, because we have Corey Shanis, who is an all-time sports collector, on the next episode, and he's going to show us his own holy grail of sports card collecting. You don't want to miss it. He's been featured in the New York Times for his collecting. Make sure to keep an eye out.